So welcome everyone to our Thursday evening class, and if you'd like to make yourself comfortable for some meditation now, then we'll sit for about 45 minutes today. So if you'd like to start by finding a comfortable position for yourself in meditation. If you're sitting on the floor, then with your right leg over your left leg, your right hand on your left hand, with the index finger of your right hand touching against the thumb of your left hand, with your hands palm upwards on your lap. If you're sitting on a chair, then sit with your back fairly straight and find a position of poise for yourself, by which you feel alert and yet relaxed, not leaning too far forward nor too far back, not leaning to the right nor to the left. And make sure your eyes are only very gently closed. Never squeeze your eyes closed, but close your eyes gently, in much the same way you'd close your eyes to go to sleep. And make sure there's no heaviness on your eyelids. If you notice that your eyes are closed too tightly, or if there's any heaviness around your eyes, then you may need to open your eyes and close them again more gently still. From there you can slowly scan down through the whole of your body to make sure each and every muscle in your body is as relaxed as possible. So relaxing the muscles of your face, of your neck, and letting your shoulders drop to their natural height. Your upper back should be fairly straight, more or less at a 90-degree angle with the floor. And with your head and your neck upright. Scanning further down by relaxing your torso, both of your legs, all the way down to your feet and your toes. Until you're fairly satisfied that no remaining part of your body remains with any sort of stress or tension anymore. If you do notice anywhere where tension still seems to linger on, you can do your best to relax it as far as possible, allowing you to let go of your body, let go of any concerns about your body, allowing you to turn your attention inward, to focus instead on the feeling inside you, allowing the relaxation of your body and mind to lead you back to the present moment. And we turn our attention to relaxing the mind, conjuring up a sense of happiness and joy in the mind, and allowing that sense of refreshedness inside us to perfuse the whole of our body and mind for a few moments. Washing away any worries or concerns, unburdening our mind to leave a sense of lightness and expansion and wholesomeness. Just putting aside all the things that belong in the past, together with whatever will be in the future. And for a few moments we remain in the here and now, which is a useful way to take back control of our own mind, which in the present day is a luxury and a gift in our lives. So we need to embrace any opportunity for this. As we gradually bring our state of mind toward a state of bliss and ease and relaxation, with the same simplicity of bringing a gentle smile to our face, noticing how a smile might relax the muscles of our face, and extending the same feeling to our whole body and mind. Like some sort of special medicine that doesn't cost a penny. And as with many things in meditation, approximating to happiness will pave the way to actual happiness, just by reconnecting with the feeling. It's like bringing ourselves back from the normal stresses and worries of our lives. Otherwise, our life can be something that's no longer truly our own, almost as if we were sleepwalking through life or functioning on autopilot with no awareness of the present moment. But if we're able to stay in the present just for a few moments, immediately we start to heal ourselves, both in body and in mind, paving the way toward more subtle inner experience. And the secret of meditation is to do it with joy, with contentment, because generally anything that we don't take pleasure in will not lead us very far. And when we feel relaxed and refreshed, both in body and in mind, very gently and using no effort at all, we allow our attention to settle and to center to a point within the empty space of our body. Almost as if our whole body had been transformed into some sort of hollow shell. And an object of meditation which is convenient for us. It might be something visual. It might be something that we feel is there. We allow it to slowly gravitate down within the space of our body until it comes to a comfortable place somewhere around about the level of our solar plexus. So it's visual, it might be something bright and clear and rounded, like the sun or the full moon or a star. If it's more tactile, then it may be an object that we know is there by its weight and texture, its temperature. We allow it to settle gently at the center of ourself. At the same time, letting any thoughts in the mind gradually settle out. Gradually slow down and grind to a standstill. Until no further thoughts arise in the mind anymore. A state known as the standstill of the mind. If any thoughts should crop up in the mind, we do our best to ignore them. And generally they will die down into silence all by themselves. But if we feel the need to use a mantra as a mechanism to run interference on our thoughts and basically block those thoughts from the mind, we might make use of that traditional phrase, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, over and over again, with the source of the sound coming up from the center of ourselves, gradually lulling the mind towards a state that is increasingly free of any thoughts. And the two things hand in hand, that is, the inner object and the sound of the mantra if necessary, will help to lead the mind to a place of focus within us, while eventually freeing the mind of thought. The standstill of the mind means that the mind comes to rest inside the body with no further thinking anymore. Some people think that the mind is nothing without the thinking process. But in fact, in your meditation, you'll find out that the mind without thought is much more powerful than a mind caught up in concepts. The the mind that is free of thought can start to draw upon consciousness at a deeper level. Consciousness that we might call the gut feeling of the mind, or the inner wisdom of the mind. And once we switch on to these things, it will be like a sense of illumination within ourselves that literally sheds light on the mysteries of the world around us. Because wherever there's light, there will also be knowledge. Wherever there's knowledge, no ignorance can creep in. And all the other impediments to such knowledge, whether it be a sense of greed or fear, hatred or delusion, no longer have a place to hide themselves anymore. And once we've seen how things are for ourselves, then no one else will be able to persuade us otherwise. So now for a few more moments in silence, we cultivate our sense of intuition within us, freeing the mind of thought, allowing our mind to settle at the point of focus within us, cultivating the mind in this way lightly and gently just for a few more moments in silence until we come to the appropriate time. you find your mind has wandered off onto other things, each time you realize, just bring your attention back again to the center of your body as before, bringing your attention back to the center of the body as many times as it takes to build up that sense of continuity between your awareness and that special place at your center. As you continue to cultivate the mind in this way, you find that the number of thoughts become gradually less, with or without the mantra. You find that the gaps between the thoughts become gradually longer, until the gaps between the thoughts become longer than the thoughts themselves. And you start to be able to see through to what lies beneath the thoughts in the mind, beneath that superficial layer of rational thinking, giving you access to more intuitive places in the mind, a deeper level of the subconscious, gut feelings, inner wisdom, until at the point where the thoughts die down completely, you start to have a permanent connection to those deeper functions of the mind. Sometimes when we are new to meditation, we may find that there are so many things popping up in the mind, as if our mind is still busy, rather like the ocean with one wave after another. But if we're able just to accept that this is how the mind is, rather than getting worried or upset with the way our mind behaves, then we will starve those thoughts of attention, simply acknowledging and bringing our mind back to the object inside us, until gradually we'll start to master the mind, rather than be slave to our own distractions. But for now we keep our mind on track, lightly and gently, keeping our mind in place with nothing more than a feather-light touch, each to our own practice for a few more moments in silence, until we come to time for some loving kindness meditation. So we continue to keep our mind at a standstill at the center of ourselves, at the center of whatever inner experience we've built up for ourselves as a result of the meditation so far today. For some people it may be like a clear, bright sphere of brightness at the center of the body. For others it may be more like a feeling of warmth or well-being, again centered around the middle of ourselves. But whatever sort of inner experience we have attained, we touch with our attention very gently at the center of that experience. Touching gently with the same lightness of a feather floating down to touch on the surface of some water. So lightly that there's not even a single ripple on the water surface. In the same way we touch gently with our attention at the center of the inner experience within ourselves. And soon we'll find that the inner experience of the mind, whatever form it takes, will gradually expand outwards in size, expanding outwards until it is the same size as our whole body, almost as if we were sitting inside a sphere of our own well-being, or the sphere of our own light. And we can make a wish to ourselves that may we ourselves be well and happy, free of all suffering. And touching again with our attention at the center of the body, the sphere of well-being or the sphere of light will spread outwards beyond our own body, outwards in all directions, just like the moonlight shines outwards from the full moon in the night sky, or just as a block of ice spreads coolness in all directions around itself into the surrounding atmosphere. In the same way, our loving kindness spreads all around us, extending a sphere of loving kindness outwards into the room in which we are sitting for meditation, as we make the wish that may all living beings here in this room be well and happy, free from all suffering. We can extend the loving kindness further still, outwards from the center of the body to encapsulate the whole of the building in which we are sitting for meditation, with the wish that may all living beings here in this building be well and happy, free of all suffering. We spread the loving kindness further still outwards into the neighborhood, with the wish that all beings in this neighborhood be well and happy, free of all suffering. Further outwards to the whole city around us. And if you find it easier, you might imagine it as a map seen from above, extending loving kindness almost in bird's eye view, spreading loving kindness outwards to cover the whole map of the city, in all the directions all around. So there's no part of the city not touched by the coolness and radiance of the loving kindness, while again making the wish that may all living beings here in the city be well and happy, free from all suffering. We can spread loving kindness beyond the city limits to the whole country, outwards to the borders, in all directions all around, spreading loving kindness without exception to the very borders of our country, in all directions all around. Again, making the wish that all beings in this country be well and happy, free from all suffering. Before extending loving kindness to neighboring countries, outwards in all directions to the living beings without exception, with the wish that may all living beings be well and happy, be free from all suffering. Outwards to the whole continent, every country on this continent, so that our loving kindness spreads its coolness and radiance to the citizens of every country, with the wish that all living beings on this continent be well and happy and free from all suffering. Outwards to every continent of the world, whether it be Asia, Europe, Africa, North and South America, Australia or Antarctica. So there's no corner of the world not touched by the radiance and coolness of our loving kindness. Extending loving kindness to every place on the surface of our planet, again with the wish that every living being without exception, whether on the land, in the air or in the sea, be well and happy, free from all suffering, allowing all beings to live together in peace and harmony, so that true peace may prevail on our planet. And we can also extend loving kindness in all directions, outwards into the universe, to the front and the back, right and left, above and below. Extending our loving kindness outwards into the universe around us, with the wish that wherever there be living beings, they too be touched by our coolness and radiance of loving kindness. And in this way we extend loving kindness without limits, without exceptions, to the galaxies and the cosmos around us. And in the days of old, there were certain ascetics who used to specialize in the spreading of loving kindness, retiring to the seclusion of the forest in order to meditate. One particular ascetic used to favor the practice of loving kindness especially, practicing it on a daily basis, by day and by night. Whenever his mind was at ease, he would spread loving kindness, sometimes in the eastern direction, with the intention that may all living beings in this direction, and even from the smallest creatures, 2-footed, 4-footed, with many legs or no legs at all, be pervaded by my loving kindness. On another day he might spread loving kindness in the same way to the western quarter, to the northern quarter, to the southern quarter, upwards or below. And by spreading loving kindness consistently and regularly in this way, he found that when he slept in happiness, slipping into deep meditation. It would bring him joy the whole of the time, and he would have a dreamless sleep, or if he did dream, it would be of auspicious things. On waking, he felt refreshed, free of sleepiness, and he always had a radiant complexion because of his practice. If there was danger in his midst, it would never harm him, and he was loved and respected by humans and non-humans alike. He was able to enter upon meditation easily and attain higher meditation with ease, because he was able to let go quickly of external events, bearing no anger or grudges towards anyone. And his mind was bright at the center of his body the whole the time. And as a result of his loving-kindness practice, the forest where he lived soon became abundant with fruit. Even humble animals that were sworn enemies like deer and tigers, coming into the vicinity of the forest, were able to coexist in harmony, because even their minds responded to the purity and clarity of the loving-kindness meditation. So having spread loving-kindness in this way, we can condense our awareness back down again to the center of our body, taking careful note of the brightness, the clarity, feeling of peace and joy at the center of the body, and the sense of well-being, remembering this feeling as well as we can, because this feeling represents the state of progress in meditation that we have made up until now. And if we can remember this feeling as well as we can, the next time we sit down to meditate again, we can start again from this feeling. Start by conjuring up this feeling, and then we can continue to make progress next time from where we left off. So for the last few moments of this meditation, we take a few moments to make a mental note of the state of our progress in meditation, remembering the feeling as well as we can for a few more moments now in silence. Supe Buddha Balapata Bacce Kanancha Yambalang Arahantanancha Te Jena Harakambandami Sapaso Sabba Buddhanupavena, Sabba Dhammanupavena, Sabba Sankhanupavena Sattha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for this evening, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position before gradually finishing your practice. So far, so good, everyone. No complaints. Well, we turn now to look at a continuation of some of the subjects that we've been studying over the last few weeks, mostly on Thursdays. And it is a series or a sequence of character qualities and virtues within the context of Buddhist culture, which are seen as rather like a staircase, where by cultivating one virtue, it leads to the next. So you can jump onto the staircase in any place, but the next step up will always be an improvement in your character towards a point where you can eventually reach the transcendental and become enlightened. Hence the enlightened living title. And over the last few times we've been looking at things like how to live more intentionally, and a lot of these qualities could be considered as a preparation of the quality of mind, ready to do a little bit of gardening, to till the soil, fertilize the soil, and eventually to hear teachings that may transform our lives for the better. And as we embark on what's known as group number 7 of teachings in these 38 blessings in all, then we start to see a sequence. Tonight's talk will be about respect, and respect together with other qualities like humility and contentment, gratitude, are seen to be the sort of things which act as a fertile soil for the final one, which would be hearing Dharma teachings, or teachings about Buddhist practice or Buddhist self-improvement. So without these qualities, respect, humility, contentment, gratitude, then it would be rather like stony ground on which, even if you plant good seedlings, that they're unlikely to do very well. So the first 4 of these 5 blessings in this subsection are concerned with softening up the mind and making it more receptive to the seeds which come in number 26 to do with Dhamma teachings. But today we make a start on the quality of respect, which is sometimes a word that is misunderstood, especially for those of us who have grown up in a more egalitarian society. Sometimes there's the role of respect is a little bit poorly understood, and this becomes evident if you ever look in places like Tumblr, where there's lots of bumper stickers and slogans to do with respect, which seem to promote rather a different understanding than the one I'm trying to explain to you today. So one of the ideas of respect, which seems to be quite commonly understood, is that you only respect other people, so they're going to respect you back. So there's a few of these. But mostly seems to be something along the lines of accept diversity as long as it's harmless. And Dennis Franz just now, apparently of NYPD fame, he said he's only respectful because he expects other people to treat him with respect back again. And some of them are attributed to the Buddha, but I don't think they really are in the scriptures from what I have seen. Yes, so sometimes they are sort of a little bit fake. And a second group of slogans seems to justify respect in terms of being good-mannered towards others, no matter how undeserving they are, because it reflects well on you to do so. And again, some of them are attributed to the Buddha, but wrongly or rightly, they seem to miss the point about respect, at least the sort I'm trying to convey today. They're more about like maintaining good manners, and hopefully as a result of today's session you'll see that having respect goes quite a lot further than the ones which we see in the quotes. And lastly, there comes a set of slightly confusing slogans about self-respect, which is a path to getting respect from others, which probably I would have called self-confidence or maybe self-gratitude. And again, it's a little bit borderline problematic because it seems to feed into promoting narcissistic values, which makes things worse for those who already suffer from delusions of grandeur and difficulty of understanding the proper role of respect, especially when we are trying to push back against those who feel entitled or just narcissistic. So these sorts of respect quotes, like expecting respect from people and so on, actually they seem to have got rather divorced from what we are looking at within the context of the enlightened living. Actually, we've seen something on respect already in the sequence of blessings. Can you remember back to when? We're on 22 now. Actually, you need to go back to number 3. When we had one of the subjects which we learned about was called expressing respect to those worthy of respect. And somehow the idea of someone being worthy of respect is rather a different sort of function, because it was like almost like apprenticing ourselves to people who we thought we could learn from. But today is more about what's in your mind in terms of attitudes of respect rather than the expressions of respect. And in this respect, probably the closest I can do to explaining why respect is important at this late stage in the enlightened living sequence is that it is one of the qualities that allows people to actively seek out and acquire the knowledge they lack from the people around them. That make sense? So all what we've seen from the bumper stickers and so on, they may use the same word, but actually the purpose of respect at this point in the blessings is more to do with empowering yourself to absorb knowledge from the things and people around you. In many companies, they don't have a requisite skill set for the people they take on when they interview them for a new job. And if you don't have the qualities they want, then they would just turn you away. But within our organization, we have used at least to have the idea that anyone who wants to help out has unlimited potential. It's just that if they don't have the skill when they start out, then they can pick it up by helping out as they go along, if they have a sense of respect for the people around them. Yeah? And it works because people are supposedly open-handed in sharing the knowledge and expertise they have with those around them. They don't hold something back. It's not like they've got some trade secrets which they're not going to let on about. Yeah? So where there's respect and there's a sort of openness with knowledge, then knowledge can flow. But this doesn't happen naturally in many organizations. And many multi-billion net worth businesses, whether it be Lucent or Cisco, have discovered that although they have very large organizations with a lot of knowledge contained in its members, it's relatively unsupportive as a learning environment. And it actually costs them money, so they have to do something about it. If it didn't cost them money, then they probably wouldn't be that interested. But supposing you have a company with 100 employees and one employee in that company finds a way to work faster or make products better, then their discovery ought to be something that would be shared amongst all the 100 employees, right? But what actually happens is that people don't share. They want to be the one who does better than all their competitive co-workers. Sometimes they have other people don't want to learn anything from them, even though it's a good idea, because they have a personal dislike for that inventor. Some people like to reinvent the wheel for themselves. So the problem of sharing knowledge has spawned a whole new section of management science called knowledge management. And there are many things in the book called If Only We Knew What We Know by Carl Odell and C. Jackson Grayson Jr., which can also be applied to knowledge within a spiritual setting as well. And the book actually starts out with quite a gruesome observation by Arthur C. Clarke, who you've heard of, right? Arthur C. Clarke? Science fiction writer. Yeah? Well, he observed that many cave dwellers whose fossils remain in caves were actually discovered frozen to death on beds of coal. Ironic, eh? So they actually died in the same place as things they could have used to survive. But because they didn't recognize the value of what they had right in their face, literally, mine it or use it in a way that could save their life, this is a clear example of how what you don't know can and will hurt you. So sharing knowledge, valuing innovation can be a matter of life and death. And for competitive corporations, then it can reduce their ability to compete. So some of the things which from that book on knowledge transfer we can learn from, which sort of introduce the idea of respect, which we are looking at in this particular blessing, are things which are also potentially helpful to us as meditators. So firstly, being open about what you know saves others reinventing the wheel. Admitting your failings or your shortcomings, especially in your meditation, allows you to learn from your mistakes and from others' mistakes if they are willing to share with you. Asking when you don't understand is also a good way to share knowledge, because often a teacher doesn't know what you don't know, and it's only by the questions they receive that they can then go into more detail about the things which are interesting to you or which you particularly want to know about. And focusing on the good in the things which you're learning about will help to reduce the sense of competition between those trying to learn about it. Many of the things to do with respect I'll talk about today are the opposite of finding fault with things. is to do with finding what's right with things and focusing on that as a sort of active effort which you make to look for what is good in things. So if you only find fault with things, then you only find the very superficial aspects of what you're trying to learn about. Respect would lead you deeper. Being enthusiastic, being helpful to a person with knowledge helps to make a person with knowledge more motivated to share what they know. Why is this important? Because many of the things you're dealing with, whether it's in a corporate setting or even in a spiritual setting, are embodied in people. And if that person moves on or passes away, then often if that knowledge remains unshared, then the knowledge dies with them. So if they are able to pass on 100% of what they know to the next person, then the knowledge survives. But if they only pass on a half of what they know because they don't feel like it, or they feel lazy, or they don't feel enthusiastic enough to share what they know, then that knowledge is reduced by half in that generation. And even knowledge that's valuable can gradually tail off generation by generation if it is not shared. Sharing of knowledge is rather like transmission of any sort of subjective knowledge, and you can use the metaphor of things like analog TV stations, now a thing of the past a little bit. But from spiritual knowledge, then there's someone who discovers something new in the first place and they try to share what they know with others. Whether those other people pick up on the knowledge or not is rather like having a good TV aerial. You might get more or less good a picture. I'm not talking about digital these days, but you can remember the fuzzy snow that you got on TV screens when you hadn't lined up your aerial properly. Then sometimes the amount of knowledge we get from a spiritual teacher is rather similar to that we don't really get the full picture, especially if we've got pigeons sitting on our TV aerial, or a plane is flying overhead. So it's like a chain of continuity from a source of knowledge down to the present day, present generation. And every part of that chain, if it is fully functioning, if there's no leakage along the way, then the student gets the full complement of knowledge at the end point. But what generally happens is that there are leaks in the knowledge along the way, so the student actually doesn't get quite as much as they should do. And where respect comes in is that it manages to maximize at every point the amount of knowledge that gets through to the next stage of the transmission. In things like Tibetan Buddhism, they actually even call the sort of teachings which a guru gives transmissions. Yeah. But here we just use it as a metaphor. And it could be said that in history, knowledge of any sort has phases where it prospers and then dies out. Certain historians, such as Edward Gibbon or Arnold Toynbee, they speculated that things like the fall of the Roman Empire was due to a loss of vision about what it meant to be a good Roman. At some point where there is sort of corruption comes in, then the real tragic thing that happens for the whole civilization, which has been built up to that point, is there's a loss of vision. Like I said, people know 100%, but they share only 50%. So generation by generation, half of the knowledge disappears, half of the vision of what it means to be a good Roman disappears, until there's nothing left but barbaric tribes or whatever. Same thing happened, same pattern with ancient Egyptians or with Aztecs. But you see a similar pattern of loss of vision at a certain point, often where there's a sort of descent into barbaric activities. So if it can happen to huge and powerful civilizations like those, then how about something flimsy and non-aggressive like meditation, which has to live from teacher to student and outlive the people who know about it now and be passed down to another generation. Without that sharing, then knowledge will sort of disappear into oblivion as well. It can't live in books alone. It has to be exemplified for the most part. So this losing of vision, it is something which is very human invested. And the quality of respect is to do with the active qualities by which that knowledge can be passed down and not lost along the way. So, to look at respect and what we would mean by that, having spent quite a lot of time on what respect is not, we can say that what it does seem to be, in the Buddhist definition at least, is and I'm making a difference between expressing respect, which is what we learned back in number 3, and what we're learning about now. Expressions of respect, any polite and intentional action towards someone or something, both in the present and behind their back, that demonstrates that one is really recollecting their virtues of that person or thing. But here we're talking about the attitude behind the expression, which is of one's free will opening up to ways in which someone or something, in truth, may be more valuable or important than we are, so that we can learn something from them. So they have something or know something that is more than we know, so we want to learn from them. So it has to be a sense of you are missing something in comparison to that person who you want to learn from. If you think you know it all already, then that is not an attitude of respect. So respect is easy to understand if you say it. It's pretty much the opposite of finding fault with things. If you look at the epistemology, even in English, then respect is made up of 2 parts, the word, the re part and the spect part. Re means doing something for a second time. Spect means looking at something, like spectacles, So you put the 2 parts together, you see that it means literally looking at something again. But what are you looking at it again for? You're looking to see what you can learn from it. What are the qualities of this thing? If those Stone Age people had looked at the coal and actually realized, hey, this might be useful to keep us warm, then their respect would have saved their lives. But they didn't look at it. They just thought, oh, here's a whole lot of black stuff which is cluttering up our cave. So the functions of respect support us to look for good in that person or thing. If you are respectful towards a person, then they respond to that treatment, and that person actually is forced to look at themselves to think, am I actually worthy of the respect that people are showing me? And if you're not, then you have to quickly play catch-up. It perpetuates a humane culture of knowledge. Like we've seen, there's not a tailing off of knowledge if anywhere where there is respect around. And it reduces your selfish views because you always are aware of where you have shortcomings or blind spots that you need to fill in, and you can see the potential people around you to provide those parts of your jigsaw puzzle which you are missing. Certainly it trains you to get along with other people, because instead of looking for faults with people, you're looking for what you can learn from people. So in fact you're hungry to learn more about people so that you can learn from them too. And being respectful generally makes for the sort of society which there's a sort of dignity to people, where people are valued especially for what they can share with others as well. So today we looked at basically what respect is and is not, and next time, probably next Thursday if I'm not mistaken, we will look at maybe ways to cultivate respect, especially in the Buddhist context. But I will leave you with a little story today, which is to do with one way in which respect organizes itself, especially in Asian societies, particularly in monastic societies, which is around by an artificial means of seniority. Yeah? Those who are more senior have shown respect by those who are more junior. And there's a story from one of the Jatikas called the Titira Jataka, which is Jataka number 37, which is actually an animal story. It's got cartoons because they teach this to children from an early age in Buddhist cultures. And the three characters in this story are a partridge, and a monkey, and an elephant. And all three animals live together in a banyan tree. And as with many of these Jataka stories, the animals had the ability to talk to one another. But despite their capacity to communicate, they failed to show any respect or consideration for each other. And therefore, they did not get along very well, and they were more of a hindrance to each other than a help. The elephant thought it was the best because it was the biggest, and it would scratch itself against the tree so roughly that all the other animals would fall out of the tree. So that's no good. And it would also trumpet loudly and would wake up all the others. The monkey wasn't much better because it thought it was the best. And why? Because it could climb the tree more quickly, and it would do things like drop ants' nests on the elephant's head if it wasn't in a good mood. If it was bored, it would rip apart the partridge's nest just for fun. And the partridge said nothing, but sometimes it would do a dropping on the other animal's head, or it would sing loudly whenever it felt like it. So in the end, the three animals, none of them could get a proper night's sleep. So they had a tree meeting and decided that they had to do something, because if they carried on like this, then none of them would enjoy their lives anymore. So to solve the problem, they decided to respect each other according to their age. And there wasn't any obvious ways to determine what was the age of those animals, because like they could talk but they couldn't count. So they worked out a way of counting how old they were by how much of the history of the tree they lived in they could remember. So they started with the elephant, and the elephant said his first memory of the tree was when the tree was as tall as his tummy button. So that was about like a meter tall for a young elephant. And the monkey's first memory of the tree was when it could sit on the ground and nibble the shoots on the top, so maybe about 6 inches high. And the bird said that it could remember the tree since it had not yet sprouted. Sort of aside, it did the dropping that seeded the tree in the first place. And turns out from the comparison that the bird is therefore the most senior, followed by the monkey, followed by the elephant. And the way seniority works in such a situation is that, especially between siblings, is that in Asian cultures, the elder sibling must take care of each of the younger siblings and teach them what they need to know. Whereas the younger siblings have the duty to be compliant and humble and eager to learn from their elder siblings. Yeah? So in those languages of those Asian cultures, you don't just call them brother, sister, but you have a special name for younger brother or older brother, special name for younger sister or older sister, because it defines how you treat them, basically. So now each of the animals knew where they stood in relation to the other animals. They could put their good habits to work. And the bird would get up early in the morning and fly up as high as it could in the sky and do reconnaissance to find out which part of the forest had fruit that was ripe that day. Once it had got the location, then the bird would share it with the elephant and the monkey. They didn't have to guess anymore where to find the fruit, but they could all sit on the back of the elephant and go directly to where the fruit was ripe. And now, instead of the elephant having to wait for the fruit to drop off the tree, the monkey would climb up the tree and collect the fruit for the other two. And they could pick so much fruit that it could be transported on the back of the elephant, and they could store it at the bottom of the banyan tree so that the next day they wouldn't have to go looking for food. So, as a more general principle of respect according to seniority in bringing forth the goodness of every person, even in a monastic community or in a family, it allows for cooperation and sharing of knowledge. Yeah. So for today, let's finish off with a few little announcements. You're all regular meditators, I know already. You may find Mind Gem is useful to remind you of different approaches to meditation, if you haven't already found that one on your mobile phone. And upcoming events, we have classes here every Tuesday and Thursday evening. The Tuesday evening class is having a slightly shorter meditation, the Thursday being a 45-minute meditation. There's also meditation online, which is shared between the meditators in the centers around Europe between 7 and 8 p.m. on a Saturday evening, or between 8 and 9 if you're on European time. And many of our meditators who don't have a center nearby like to join that one as well. So you see faces from all around Europe and perhaps beyond as well. The next full moon meditation coming up on the 8th of November, which is a Tuesday, is our candle floating ceremony, the Loi Gut Hong tradition from Thailand, and the theme is floating away your worries. So if you come on the Tuesday evening on that particular day, then there's an additional activity, candle lighting and floating your candle lantern away on the fish pond. Yes. So for today, I think that's all I have for you. But if there's any questions or comments or feedback at this point, then be very pleased to hear from you. Sorry? Yes, go on. I think respecting everyone is not the idea. So that's the bumper sticker respect. But you respect everyone in the sense that you're looking for, in this person who is like 99% a person who I have problems with, is there a 1% there which is maybe a redeeming quality, which I can learn from, or maybe which I can connect with them for that 1% alone. And if that quality is there, then there is a sharing for people who otherwise you might find the sort of person who you cannot connect with at all. So it's the quality of actively looking for something in people, no matter how deeply hidden that 1% might be. Is there something there I can learn from? And even just by looking, it will already give you a more positive outlook for the people who you have to share that society with. But generally it is starting with people who you find worthy of the respect to start with, but later we extend that to everyone as far as possible and actively look for something of a redeeming quality in that person. Yeah. Yes, there's always a danger that you get dragged in by the 99%, in which case you would have to know about your own potential to be yourself, or keep your own sense of spiritual freedom, and not get drawn into the 99%, which you might not be quite so keen on having brush off on you. Yeah. May all of you enjoy happiness, success, prosperity in life. Always be around the people who you can find something valuable to learn from, and have the quality of respect to absorb the goodness from every person and situation you meet now and forevermore.